Welcome to this session of the 2021 online KBHC experience, an offering of Cormount music and our gift to the horn community. In this session, we feature James Naigus, lecturer of horn at the University of Georgia, hornist with the Georgia Brass Quintet, and one of the most actively commissioned and recorded composers for horn music today. I'm your moderator, Kyle Schober, Eastman doctoral student, active freelancer, and teacher. Before we jump into the session, a few Zoom housekeeping items. I'm sure you're all familiar with them, but we're going to go over them again anyway. So that when we're able to hear the presentation, we've muted all participants. Please stay muted for the duration of the session unless one of our presenters asks you to unmute. If you click on participants at the bottom of the screen, you should see a participant list pop up with your name at the top. If the name associated with your Zoom account is different from your own first and last name, please click on the blue More button next to your name, select Rename, and enter your first and last name. This will help us know who it is we are communicating with. If you click Chat at the bottom of the screen, you should see the chat box appear. Comments posted in the chat are affected by the drop-down menu above the text box. Depending upon your selection, your comments may be viewed by everyone or by individual participants. Each time that you enter a comment into the chat, please double check your selection so that your comment is seen by your intended audience. And with that, I'll hand the session off to James.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Kyle. Hi, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. So good to see you. And you made it. It's the last day. It's been a busy week. And just the fact that there are 36 of you here is wonderful. The hardest part of anything is showing up. That's like 95% of it, whether it's a practice session, a warm-up session, going to the gym, whatever it is. The hardest part is that initial step, in this case with horn, getting the horn out of the case and getting ready. So you did it. I'm proud of you because sometimes warming up can be a struggle, especially if we're tired. So today, in this morning's session, I want to start by talking a little bit about warming up. So you can go ahead and put your horn in a safe location gently. If you have one of these little like horn hammock things, you can put it there. If you want to put it on the ground gently, just make sure no one steps on it. And then we'll definitely go through it and play a bunch of exercises later on. But to start, there's just a couple of things I want to talk about in relation to warm up. And I also want to talk instead of playing the whole time, because I've never willingly warmed up for more than 30 minutes in my whole life. and I don't mean that to slight any of the other routines that you've seen. But for me, I've found a good, consistent warm-up that is efficient, and that is very important to me. And at a certain point, warm-ups go from actually warming up, which is the act of getting ready, to play, into technique. And so that line is kind of blurred. And even today, we're going to do some exercises that you can either consider part of your warm-up or part of your general technique exercise. And that's all good. But as you've seen throughout the week with all the different sessions, everyone approaches warm-ups a little differently, but with the same kind of core ideas. And really, the thing I love about warm-ups the most is that it's a personal thing. It's your chance to make something that's unique for you. So think of it as a buffet where all the stuff throughout the week and through what lessons you've taken before, these are options you have. And it's not like we need to stick with one thing. Create some variation and really think about what is this warm-up doing for me, right? Am I just going through the motions? Am I just playing exercises? Or am I doing an efficient series and routine that actually gets me prepared for the day? So I've been thinking a lot about that. And some of the exercises that we'll do later are from a foundation of kind of 4 core elements in my warm-up, but then throughout the years, I've just started exploring other ways of approaching it. And again, as you've seen throughout the week, there's a lot of different ways to go about the same thing, which is great because variation is the spice of life. But even before we talk about horn, I want to talk about just the other aspect of warming up. So if you have a nice cup of coffee, some tea, some water, take a drink. If you put something in your coffee, that's between you and you. Maybe some creamer, maybe some sugar. I wasn't referring to anything else. But honestly, I think a big part of warming up, and in regards to our relationship with the horn, is being in a good physical and mental space before we warm up. Because in the same way, if we go into a practice session or warm up and we're just not feeling it, we're probably not going to be productive or as happy as we want. And at the end of the day, we want to be happy, right? We do this because we love it. So what this means for me is that coffee is part of my warm up. It's my pre-warm up maybe, but it means that if I have, for instance, maybe you want to warm up before you go into the office for the day. Maybe you want to get in a warm up before if you're in college or high school, before you go off to school and classes. Make sure that you build in enough time to wake up, to actually wake up, to if you drink coffee, if you want to take a shower, if you want to watch TV, to get into a position where not only are your, blood flowing to your lips and the rest of your body, and you're able to not feel so tight. If maybe you slept on your face all night and your lips feel like you're just flat like a pancake. So give yourself time to warm up your body too. And if you drink hot coffee, then that's also physically warming up there. But this is really important to me too. And it's something that also goes into any kind of recital preparation too. I know the caffeine thing is it's a hot topic for some people, because I know a lot of people that, drink coffee, drink soda, and then on the day of a performance, they're like, oh, I'm going to avoid all of that because I don't want to get the jitters. Practice the way you perform the way you practice. If you drink coffee every day, drink coffee on the day of your recital. Maybe not like pounding 2 surges, for those that remember that soda, right before your recital. That might not be a good idea. Also, that would corrode your lead pipe like crazy. But otherwise, again, warming up, routine, it's all to just make things work. At the same time, the kind of cautionary tale here, and that's why I encourage in warming up, is to mix things up, is to do variations on a theme, because you don't want to get in a position where you feel like, I must do this 45-minute sequence of exercises or I will fail. Because that's a very dangerous thing. And there was a while where I was doing a set routine, and I feel like if I didn't get through my entire warm-up, then game over. And you don't want to set yourself up for that. So you want to, again, be efficient. Think about, what is this doing for me? And then have maybe like a quick warm-up, 15-minute. If you really want to take some time and just take time between the exercises, maybe a 30. I mean, you could make it an hour long by taking breaks, but just, again, think at the end of that, what condition are you in? Are you tired? Then that's not a warm-up. That may be a practice session. So just use your own feedback. You know you best, right? In terms of making this something that is enjoyable and efficient and that works. And also just good coffee just always makes things better, unless you're a tea person. My colleague at Georgia, Jean Martin Williams, she's a tea person and I'm a coffee person. So at first I'm like, this isn't going to work. But then I realized that we won't take each other's tea and coffee. So it actually is a beautiful thing. Okay. So that's kind of the general philosophy of things. Just be healthy about it. Stretch. Just take time. And Julie wants to know about my coffee. So I'm typically a light roast coffee drinker, because I don't add any cream or sugar. And so there's a roastery here in Athens called 1,000 Faces that does a really good light roast. Very citrusy, floral overtones. I don't know. It tastes like coffee. But you read the bag and they have this really... It's like people that drink wine. Tastes like wine to me. I don't know. Does it have a nose? I thought only people had, and animals and things had noses. Yeah, I'm no sommelier or coffee barista or person. I don't know. Anyway, that's getting a little off topic, but here we are together. I think we're getting into a position where we're ready to play. So maybe we'll do a little playing. Light roast, despite what it may seem, light roasts do have more caffeine in them than dark roasts. Dark roasts can be delicious as long as it's not Starbucks, which is just burnt garbage. Sorry, hot opinion alert. If you like Starbucks, I'm sorry. That's great. More power to you. Okay, warming up. Let's talk about warm up. So here is a sheet. So this isn't included in the documents because you'll see why. So this is a 2-page thing, and I know it's small. Don't worry, I'll zoom in. That I used for my daily warm up religiously for many, many years, and it worked. But then I decided it was getting a little boring and stale. So, but the 4 main elements that we're going to talk about today: descending chromatics, essentially low before high, always focusing on good sound and good tone. Overtone series flexibility, specifically the range of like overtones 4, 5, and 6, or on F horn, C, E, and G. So the lower overtones. Then overtone series continued, but the higher overtones, so like 8 through 12. And then finally, articulation. And for me, this kind of encompassed a lot of the elements here. So we're going to build off of those using the documents that I uploaded, and also just some rote exercises. But first, just in terms of the pros here for warming up, and we talked a little bit about this, is really what is the goal of a warm-up? It's to prepare yourself. It's to get yourself ready to do what you have to do, which may not be everything. If you don't have to play a high C, then you may not necessarily need to always warm up to a high C if you're going to be playing 4th horn all the time. In general, I think it's good to hit the whole range, or whatever your whole range is, especially if you're working on expanding your range. Warm-up can be a chance to safely and carefully expand your range if you do it in a smart way. But it's all stretching, right? A lot of warming up is to avoid injury, and that's why we have to do it smart. That's why we have sequences. That's why we do low before high, soft before loud. We can do all of those things, but it's smart to be methodical about it. So with that said, one of the first things, and actually I still do this frequently, is just a descending chromatic. And for this one, if you have the low and slow packet, this is also reflected in number 2 here. So I'll just switch over to that. And what this is this is your first note of the day. So you may precede this by some buzzing or free buzzing. I personally don't free buzz well. It just doesn't work for me that well. I mean, I know some people that have just a laser beam of a free buzz. For me, it's not as efficient. So sometimes I may do a little buzzing beforehand. It would just be something like that's it, just to kind of kickstart things going. But otherwise, when I put the mouthpiece on the horn, I want to start with my first note being the most beautiful note I can make. Always play with a sense of beauty in your sound, right? We never want to compromise, even if we're warming up, even if it's the first or the last note of the day. So we're going to start on a C, and then we're going to go down the octave, maintaining that nice, rich openness, getting our air moving. This is not required to be speed. It doesn't have to be fast, but just something kind of like this. Okay, so go for resonance, openness, and especially with the lower note, stability. All right, let's try that one together. So this is C to C chromatic at your pace. Okay. Okay, if you have some water, feel free to empty as you will. Again, when you have the luxury of time in a warm-up, make sure to take it. Take rests. Don't feel like you have to go boom, 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 one back to another. Okay, let's do now B to B. We're just going to move this whole thing down a half step. And also, feel free to do this all on the F horn, all on the B flat horn, a mixture of fingerings. And that can be good just to kind of to work with the resistance and to work with the intonation concerns there. Okay, B flat to B flat. And with this one, let's take a nice, relaxed, soft breath. And what I mean by soft breath is not something that you could hear down the section, but something that's deep and open so that it's quiet. It means we're getting a lot of air in a short amount of time. Okay, so let's do at least a 2 count or 2 second breath on this next one, B flat to B flat. Okay. A to A. Etc. And you can go down as low as you can go or as low as you're feeling good for that day. Now, some variations on this. So say you don't want to do this or you want to continue in this kind of low and slow area. All of the other exercises in this packet. So let's swap in. Let's try just for fun. Let's do a little bit of number 1. And this is something that I know a lot of people find zen in using a metronome. It's almost meditative at times, especially in the morning. So for something like this, we can turn on a metronome maybe right around 60, and this also keeps us internalizing our pulse as well. So let's do a little bit of this one. In fact, you know what? We can probably do the whole thing. It would probably feel pretty good. Okay, so here's my metronome. Hopefully that'll be loud enough. Okay, well, let's just play through number 1. Maybe at a nice mezzo piano, maybe mezzo forte. 1, 2. Good. Quick pause before we go on. If you feel yourself backing up with air, make sure that after we're playing in these rests, we exhale and inhale, so we don't just keep sipping and sipping and getting tension. All right, let's start on A flat now. 1, 2, breathe. Very good. So one other thing too, in regards to low range, something to keep in mind, right, is that we're dialing in our air speed, because that is one of the main things along with vowel shape that promotes success. So it's a warm, slower air. If you ever have response issues in the lower register, one of the first things I always ask myself is, are you playing with too fast air? Is it too much? Is it too fast? And usually the answer is yes. And so just really get that nice, calm, slow air, as opposed to when we get to some of the higher overtone stuff where we have a much faster, more intense airstream. All right. Something else you can do with these too that's really a lot of fun, that's also very Zen-like, is playing with a drone. So for instance, on this exercise, you could do a concert F drone. a horn pitch C drone, and that would be really lovely. That also help with your intonation too, which I think is something that a lot of us now starting to play in ensembles again after playing by ourselves for a year and a half. It's like, oh yeah, oh yeah, intonation. That's a fun thing. So playing with drones is a nice way, rather than looking at a tuner, because this is a visual thing. We need an ear thing. Playing with a drone is an ear adjustment, right? It doesn't promote complacency. Okay. Some of these other ones, again, variations on the same kind of theme here. This one is just expanding down. You can see how we're just increasing the interval. This one gets the fingers moving a little bit, which is nice. Some arpeggio stuff. Okay, we'll do 2 more from this page, and then we'll go on to something else. Let's try some of these, because this is where we're starting to get a little flexibility. Now, maybe this is a little bit too flexible for you right now, which is... maybe we'll put it in later. Maybe you'll do this at the end of the warm-up. But I just kind of like these little arpeggios with chromatic lower neighbors. So we'll do it a little slower than the tempo that's listed. But essentially... something like that. So let's do a few of these lines together around that tempo. Still maybe a nice mezzo forte, all right? 1 bar for nothing. 1, 2. You get the idea. I apparently need some more coffee, so I will sip this coffee. Be sure, if you enjoy beverages while playing the horn, that you clean your lead pipe out on a regular basis. If you'd like to hear horror stories about what happens when you don't, just ask Paul Bassler. Because there have been some nasty lead pipes from people over camp. It's now become kind of a funny little thing. So anyway, especially corrosive beverages, just get in the habit of cleaning that thing out regularly. If you clean out your lead pipe with just warm water and a little snake regularly, it keeps your whole horn clean. Right? It's just when you neglect that, and then stuff gets pushed further in and just gets all junky and gross, and we don't want that. I have a story from youth orchestra about the principal horn who used to eat bagels during every break, and fast forward a couple rehearsals later, you can imagine something came out of that horn that was not what it should have been. So anyway, after that lovely story, let's do one more here, and let's do this little one. Now this is a finger dexterity thing too, so this gets your fingers moving. This is just a nice little, we're going down to this major third down chromatically, so something like right. So you can do whatever speed works for you, but the goal of this one is to be fast. So let's try a couple of these. Okay, so starting on C, going down to A flat. All right, and whatever tempo, whenever you want to start it is fine. Etc. Right. And what you can also do with this one too, that it's not something that's written down, is we all know the general sequence of fingers and life chromatically from any of the open F harmonics, right? So open, 2, 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 3, 1, 2 and 3. That's just the way of life. It's actually physics, right? We're just lengthening the horn. So you can do this kind of exercise off of any of the open notes, right? So going all the way up, this is because it's physics, right? So you can devise your own little exercises based off of all of the overtone partials, which leads me to my next thing, which is overtone series flexibility. This is what I found to be the most beneficial type of exercise for my own horn playing and development. Because especially if you went to any Jeff Agrell session, I mean, I think everyone really talks about this because it's just how we achieve success in brass instruments. It's our ability to successfully and with finesse navigate all of the open notes. Because, you know, all this stuff does is just add expense to the instrument. No, I mean, it helps us slot the notes because we're playing with open notes. We go all the way back to the days we didn't have valves. We had to rely on our face, and we still do. And that's why maybe it's just me, but I don't understand. Actually, here, let's have a little chat. I don't understand why trumpet players miss notes, because it's like they have, between the octave, they have like one note, right? So if they're missing it, it means they're missing this note by at least a third on their face. But maybe that's just me being a jaded horn player saying it's not fair that we have to sit so high in the overtone series where all the notes are so close together. That's why the horn is difficult, right? So that's why working on these overtone series exercises are great, because it tackles the difficulty of our instrument and it makes it something that's not difficult. So with this, well, that's true, Ben. Yeah, rips, it's what we do best, you know, so we might as well embrace it. So initially, going back to my original warm-up sheet, I had this series of this. It doesn't really matter if you do this exact pattern. You can do anything, really. So one thing that I have that I don't, no, not there, here. This isn't included in the documents as well, because I just want you to kind of get an idea of some of the patterns you can do and then not have to rely on the printed material to do it. You can do it, you know, the warm-up, especially when you memorize it, just without music, all by rote, by memory. This is a series of studies that I have my students do. So they have one pattern every week. So we're just making sure it's like eating your vegetables. So we're going to play a few of these so you get an idea of what we're talking about here. So all of these, as you can see, are either listed F horn to C horn or C horn to F horn, meaning we either start on open and go chromatically down, getting to 1 and 3, which is C horn, or we start on 1 and 3 and then go chromatically up to F horn. So let's try number 1 together. All right, tempo, maybe somewhere around 120, right? Oh, I even said it right there. Okay, that's the goal. That doesn't mean we have to play it at 120. But essentially, kind of like there. And our goal here is to be consistent with our time and our evenness, right? We want to try to avoid blowing out our microphones by bumping notes. And that's all about our air control. So let's try it. Number 1, here's our tempo, 1 bar for nothing. And 1, 2, ready. Very good. If you need to do this slower to be even and consistent, let's do that. In fact, let's do this next one a little bit slower. So we're going to go chromatically down. Second valve. All right. Same pattern. Number 1. 1, 2, ready. Sorry. My fault. I said we're going to do this slower, and then I just zoomed right off on it. So here we go. And 1, 2, ready. Very good. For the sake of demonstration, let's go on. Let's try number 2, but let's do this in E flat horn. So first valve, so B flat will be our first note. And gauge the tempo of these off of the fastest notes that we have. So we have some 16ths. Da dee da dee da dee da dee da 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 da. So if that's how fast we can play 16ths smoothly and confidently, that's how slow we need to do this whole thing. Or don't think of slow as a bad thing. Just think of it as where I am right now. Okay. So number 2, first valve, E flat horn. 1, 2, ready. Okay, let's keep going down. Now this one, since we're doing this, let's do this actually in F first, just so we get a sense of the pitch relationships, because we're going up into the 7, 8, and 9 overtone series partials. And then we'll jump down into our D horn. So this is open F horn, number 3. There we go. Okay, let's try it here. There's our tempo, F horn, and 1, 2, ready. Okay, now we have a sense of the pitch relationship. Let's do this in D horn, 1 and 2, first note, A. Okay. 1, 2, ready. All right. And then, again, so we don't tie ourselves down to necessarily always having the printed note. I want us to do, we're going to keep going down, 2 and 3. So this is good old D flat horn, right? And I want you to just make up your own pattern. Okay, doesn't need to be long. Something aligned with what we're doing here. So if we're in D flat horn, somewhere around the A flat, C, E flat range, you can go down to the low E flat if you'd like. You can go up a little bit. But the idea is just staying in this range, all slurred, all connected, all even. All right, so just make up your own pattern. I'm going to make up one. And here we go. Or something like that. I mean, it's a little tune, right? It's also a musical approach to overtone series. So we're accomplishing the same things, right? But just in a little bit more interesting context. And it's something that, especially if you improvise these, it's going to be different every time. And that's kind of exciting because you never know what's going to happen. All right. So then the next step here is going into the range of 8 through 12 with the overtone partials. And again, if we were to label these, all of these notes from the bottom to the top, 8 through 12, at least on the F horn, would be C, D, E, F, G on the near the top of the staff. That's a little bit high to start on, so instead we start on C horn 1 and 3, which means that we're dealing with G through D. And this is where we really start seeing our flexibility increase. Now, one exercise that I included here is what I called the 8 through 12 ups and downs, which is just exactly what it sounds like. And it's embracing this sharp 11th partial. This is all printed in sounding pitch but we're going to use just 1 and 3 no thumb for some of these. And then you could go chromatically up, right? So if you were doing just this first oscillation on 1 and 3, we can follow our sequence all the way up to B flat alto horn. Which takes us to F and G. And what does this sound like? Or what is this? This is a lip trill, which is one of, in my opinion, the most, for me, difficult elements of technique. It's something that I knew that I had to include in my daily warm-up / routine to make sure that I hit it every single day to get better at it. And you know what? I'm still working on it. So if it's something that you're struggling with too and it kind of gets you down, don't worry. We're all in the same boat here. We're all in this together. And if we can do this every day, I promise you it'll get better. So let's try a couple of these. And then we'll get into some more advanced patterns, okay? Let's do, for the sake of exercise, let's just do all of these on 1 and 3 in C horn. And we'll take a little lift in between, but let's do the first 4 lines, okay? So I'll find your G, and then find your 1 and 3 G, which will be stuffy and sharp, but we love it all the same, okay? Here's our tempo. 2 bars for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Number 2, 1, 2, ready. One, two, ready. One, two, ready. And you may hear my dog howling in the background. He doesn't like overtone series patterns, unfortunately. I've tried to explain it to him why they're useful and why I have to do them. He just doesn't get it. Okay, so we can expand our way out, doing bigger intervals. But again, one of the other goals here is that so often we think of this oscillation, especially the lip trill oscillation, as being a down to up thing, right? But sometimes it's really useful, especially in the context of trills, to think of it from an up to down. So practicing it from both perspectives can be useful. Okay, now the meat and potatoes, the most fun, which is the 8 through 12 other patterns. And this is where you'll see your flexibility either, well, over time take off, but it might be screaming at you in the meantime because it gets pretty squirrely, but it's also a lot of fun. So this is what I call the 8 through 12 flexibility OTS. Again, it's just patterns, right? We see this all over the place. So we'll do a few and then we'll jump to my favorite one that I included in my daily warm-up for a long time. So let's just actually jump forward to number 3 because this gets all of our notes here. And again, so this C in this case, this 11 is actually the out of tune one, right? So we want to embrace that. We don't want to try to lip that note into tune because then we'll just be developing bad habits. So just play it where the horn wants to play it. Okay. Base your speed on these based on, again, the fastest notes. So the 16s. We're going to try it there, which means our first quarter notes are going to be slow and methodical. We're also going to take a little lift, maybe like between each of these sets of 2 bars, maybe a 1-beat lift, which isn't printed in, but I think we can do that together. All right, so here we go. Let's try it. This is 1 and 3, no thumb, number 3, with a little lift between each of the 2 bar segments. 1, 2, 3. your tempo, we can do this all. In fact, this next time we'll try it without any of the breaths just to see how far you can get in one good breath. So let's do the same exercise. Let's jump up to 1 and 2, and let's do it all continuously. Okay. So when I count my 4 counts, I want you to breathe on 3 and 4. So here we go. 1 and 2, and 1, 2. Okay, I barely made it through that one. If you feel like you're going to faint, bail. Don't faint. Especially on that last note there, but very good. Okay, let's just moving on. Again, if I were doing this in an actual full warm-up, I would be a little bit more strategic in terms of my sequence of things. I'm more just want to kind of show you some options that you have, right? And what those options sound like. So I want to jump to number 5 because I'd be remiss if we did not play through some of this. This was the pattern that I included in, if we could look back to the warm-up, right? Which is this whole mess here. And, well, I'll play this for you, and then we'll do the much simpler version, which I have in the other one. So this was what I designed to work on my lip trill, which was starting slow to fast trill, and then doing this crazy pattern. This was C horn. This would be when you got up to B flat alto horn, it would get up to high C. All right, so just to demonstrate this, and then we'll go back to the one that you have in the handouts. So it's squirrely, but if you're trying to really be accurate about it, it's good. It helps you prepare for stuff. This is like expert mode. So let's try this pattern. This is the one that was in the middle of that other pattern. So this was, let's go back to C horn 1 and 3, and just try this slowly. So be careful not to go back up to the top D every time. Yeah, just try that. Let's just go for just the pitch on that one before we put it in a rhythmic context, okay? Try it with me again. All right, so now let's turn the tempo way down, and let's say our 16ths are going to be, and so this means this is our quarter note. There's no way, and I haven't drank nearly enough coffee to make this all through in one breath at this tempo, so we're going to do the lifts again between each of the 2-bar segments. Here we go. Number 5, 1 and 3 at this tempo. 1, 2, 3. Very good. So let's do, and actually this one's a little easier than number 4 because we're jumping around non-adjacent overtone series parcels, which can get pretty tricky. Let's do number 5 one more time. Let's try it a little faster, and let's do it on E flat horn, first valve. If you don't have your tempo up to the 16ths, that's fine. Just take it to the triplets, and then you'll be done. And then you'll just speed up your tempo gradually over time, and maybe tomorrow you'll get it. Okay, number 5, first valve. 1, 2, 3. And again, my dog does not like that. I don't know if that's coming through on the microphone. Probably is. But then the thing is that he doesn't move. In fact, he gets closer and sits right behind my bell. I'm like, but why? So he's just confused. Okay, Colton, your overtones sound wonderful. All right, so here we go. You could take this all the way up, keep going up. Something you'll find probably if we go back to something like, let's do this. Here's another way you can use this exercise is just take a chunk of it and then go chromatically up. And something when you go to the B flat side, if we switch from F to thumb 2 and 3, I think you'll notice a resistance change because we're going on the other side of the horn. So that's a whole other thing that we have to deal with. So let's do, how about these these 2 bars. That's all we're going to do. But we're going to then chromatically go up. So like this. And take a breath whenever you need to. But let's just go up and see how high we can get, okay? 1, 2, ready. Make sure you take time to rest, take the horn off your face. Okay, and that's the idea there. So the last bit of this warm-up, and by the way, I should say with these exercises, don't play all 5 of them in a warm-up. Maybe play one of them and then take it through the different horns, which is, I mean, the whole point of this is stretching, right? And the higher we get, the trickier it is to navigate. So definitely don't wear yourself out by doing all of these. Again, variation. This is about a smorgasbord of materials that you can pick and choose from depending on what you're hungry for on that particular day. All right, so the final part here is just articulation, because I have always had a really lazy, fat tongue, single tongue. I too had developed when I was younger a slow double tongue to compensate for the fact that I couldn't single tongue. And also, I also can't triple tongue very well, so I do an alternating double tongue. And you just learn to emphasize the ga or the ka depending on what syllables you use. But anyway, this is still very helpful for me. This can be any kind of pattern. I'll put that away so that we can just do it by rote, a few things. So I'm going to play an exercise and then you'll play it back, or we'll play it together, okay? So this is just starting in C, C, D, E, F, G. Those are the only notes we're using. Okay, so let's do this one. Okay, 2, ready. Pattern 2. Ready. And. Pattern 3. Ready. So there's your blank canvas. Now, I tend to like to approach this initially from a more legato standpoint. Again, for me, something that's really helped with my articulation is taking a switch from a very abrasive ti, ti, ta type of syllable to a di, do, da type of thing. That's what just really helps me. And really, I mean, the difference between a legato note and a staccato note is not the beginning. It's not how we start the note. It's how we end the note. So whether you use a T or a D, It's whatever works best for you. So we can do this in different modes. We can do this in different scale types. Let's do a few more just for the sake of exercise and just to vary it up a little bit. So let's do F Lydian. So F, G, A, B natural, C. Those are our 5 notes that we're going to use. All right, and we're going to do the same patterns, but this time I want you to vary the articulation in some way, whether maybe staccatissimo, maybe super legato, maybe some slurs in with some of the articulations. It's up to you. All right, but we'll do another kind of call and response thing. An F Lydian, F, G, A, B natural, C. Here's pattern 1. Ready? Okay, so that's a general thing. I mean, you can do anything too. It's also, I find, doing some lower register stuff too. So just maybe like 2 notes per descending chromatic. And kind of varying the speed that you're doing it to, just making sure the tongue's working in all different speeds and areas. You can do the same thing on a G. If you want to then incorporate your double tongue in there, you could do that as well. But that's all, again, that's up to you. Maybe you're someone that's just articulation is always there, and then so you can spend more time on the slurred stuff or the overtone series stuff. That's the great thing about warm-ups. And here's the other great thing. You don't have to have it figured out. You can always be adjusting and always be trying new things. And that's one of the great things I love about having all of these different guided warm-ups is that you get all of these different opinions. And it's something that I really try to stress in my own teaching is that I'll often say, look, here's something that worked for me, right? That doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But the goal is to try it and find something that does work for you. Because we're all built differently, right? We all play differently. Our teeth are different. Our tongues are different. Our heads are different. Our horns are different. And so there's not one thing that works for everyone. But there's a lot of things to try to find that thing that works for you. So that's kind of my warm-up philosophy in a nutshell. I'm actually surprised that it took this long to get through all this stuff, mostly because we were talking about it, right? In a warm-up situation, you wouldn't probably be talking through the whole process. You would be concise. But as you get to that point where you're then putting warm-up exercises back to back, be sure to include rest. Because it's not like it's something where, okay, I have all this stuff. I'm going to try to be as efficient as I can by playing it really fast back to back. That probably will defeat the purpose of the warm-up. Just make sure that you're not building tension, that you're relaxed, that you're sufficiently caffeinated, if that's your thing. And ideally, you don't have creatures that are annoyed by your own playing, which I guess... Golden, do you want to say hi? Hey, you want to come say hi? He's just sleeping right there. Yeah. Anyway. Any questions? We just have a few minutes left.
So we do have one question from Aaliyah who asks, any tips staying in the game or not getting discouraged while working on flexibility? She says, when I'm practicing these, I feel like I sound like a congested elephant.
Well, subsequently, that's actually a chapter title in my autobiography. I sound like a congested elephant. I think one thing that Jeff Agrell really said well was how we think about failure being not a bad thing, but just the inability to achieve what we want to achieve in the moment. Is just to detach any emotion from that and realize, oh yeah, I'm working on this. So I just got to keep putting in the time and knowing that a result will happen. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. As far as the more advanced flexibility patterns, just start slow. Just take, maybe all you're going to do is just those two notes at that speed, and just try to make music out of it, rather than thinking of it just as a technical exercise. Does that make sense? Trust me, when I started doing all of this, all of that stuff, it definitely, I mean, I've been playing that pattern for over 15 years, so I'm still working on it, but that doesn't bother me, because we're all in different parts of our own journey and our own playing. And besides, you're a great player, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Cool. So we have one more question from Susan, and she asks, for overtone series, how do you keep from slotting the notes so that they can flow better?
That's a great question. Yeah. I think it's a combination of, it's a lot of air is what I've found for me, is air and just a pressure thing. So if, for instance, we were taking the 8 through 12 on C horn, right, I can consciously try to really slot those notes. What I think I'm doing is, number one, I'm kind of pushing a little bit. I'm also air bumping. Right, my air is a little too fast, or for what I want to smooth. And I'm thinking segmented. I'm not thinking malleable. Right, so one thing we can go back to is just the way that we want to approach it is more in terms of, if we were to buzz it, instead of, it's, so there's a certain element of smoothness that we're dealing with. We're going to pull back our airspeed a little bit, and maybe even just kind of lighten the pressure. Think of everything happening a little bit further back in the mouth. And over time too, it'll help doing that. I mean, we're so trained to be slotting and accurate and everything, but the more you can think of this smoothness and not necessarily even worrying about hitting the notes at first, but focusing on the malleability, I think that will probably help too. And just, having that be your primary goal.
Excellent. Great. So that is about all the time we have for questions. But again, a huge thank you to you, James, for presenting this and sharing some of your thoughts with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And again, thank you. 41 people here this morning. That's awesome. That's really great. So we have some awesome sessions coming up, and I think you're about to talk about it, so I'll let you do your thing.
I sure am. So thank you for attending this session of the 2021 online KBHC experience, an offering of Warmup music and our gift to the horn community. Please join us at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time for You Too Can Compose with Paul Basler, renowned composer and professor of music at the University of Florida, where he teaches horn and undergraduate composition courses. And remember to join us at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for our final evening session of the week, Ice Cream Social Q&A with KBHC faculty, featuring Bernard Scully, horn soloist, former member of Canadian Brass, artistic director of Kendall Betts Horn Camp, and associate professor of horn at the University of Illinois. It also features Jesse McCormick, second horn of the Cleveland Orchestra, a member of the Factory Seconds Brass Trio, horn professor at Baldwin Wallace Conservatory, and associate artistic director of Kendall Betts Horn Camp. Sergeant First Class J.G. Miller, principal horn of the United States Army Field Band, avid arranger, composer, pedagogue, and the first person to be elected to the position of military liaison to the International Horn Society. Peggy Moran, associate professor of horn at the University of Central Oklahoma, member of the Akuo Trio, and executive director of Kendall Betts Horn Camp. And it also features our very own James Naigus, lecturer of horn at the University of Georgia, hornist with the Georgia Brass Quintet, and one of the most actively commissioned and recorded composers for horn music today. In the meantime, please check us out on our various social media platforms. You can subscribe to our YouTube page by searching for Kendall Betts Horn Camp. You can also find us on Facebook using @KBHornCamp and Instagram using @official_KBHC. Anytime you post about us or share something we posted, please be sure to include the hashtag KBHC2021. Finally, please visit us at horncamp.org for more information about our upcoming online and in-person offerings. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.